Hello everybody and welcome back to Odin's movie blog. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well, and today I just want to call out all of the doubters and all of the haters who said, Psh, Aquaman's not going to make $1 billion. Well, if we look to the latest numbers, it's at currently $629.4 million. This film is well on its way to making $1 billion. It's so funny that now you start to see more box office personalities, more movie personalities who study the film industry coming out saying, oh, the journey to $1 billion. I've been calling this for a couple weeks now that this was going to be the case after I saw those initial numbers coming out of China, because I can do math and I have a knowledge of history. And I'm going to say it one more time for anyone that might still be doubting whether or not it's going to make $1 billion or not. Remember, when it comes to history, whenever there is a big budget film and whenever it's successful, usually, and this is like 99% of the time, if it is successful, that is, it has to be successful, of course, and it has a China release. That's why it's most of the time, because sometimes big budget movies might not get a China release because of various restrictions on the film itself. But if you look to the current gross in China, what do we see? Right now, in China alone, Aquaman has made $232.9 million, which is roughly half of the entire box office gross for the entire foreign market. Now, normally what you'll see is China will be about a third of the entire box office, which means that not only is it making a crap ton more in China than a lot of people might have thought, but it also means that the rest of the world still is going to have a lot of money left over for Aquaman to make up. Now, will it eventually lead to it being exactly 33.3%? Who is to say? Maybe it will be closer to 40%. Maybe it will stay around 0.5% if it keeps doing well in China. The point being made here is that this film is doing exceptionally well overseas and also is doing very well here in the United States of America. So well, in fact, that it's actually outpacing many other films that reach similar benchmarks. A great example of this would be the movie that I want to talk about today, The Last Jedi. At this point in time, it has made more. It's going to outstrip the Wednesday returns. Again, around the same time this film was released, the same time that The Last Jedi was released, and it is now doing better than The Last Jedi as far as what it makes from day to day, at least as of Wednesday. That's a very big deal, because remember that The Last Jedi got a lot of very negative press, got a lot of bad word of mouth, and yet still made $1.3 billion. And why is that the case? Because 6% of the entire box office earnings are normally made within the first 2 weeks. This film has been out now about 3 weeks in China, is coming up on the second weekend or so in the United States, and also in other parts of the world. And so therefore what you see is you see a perfect combination, a perfect storm, since that we are also currently still within the Christmas season. You are seeing a perfect storm of events that is going to help lead to this film making a lot of money. The fact that it is now outpacing, at least domestically, that is at least outpacing The Last Jedi here in the United States, tells you that this film is probably going to do better domestically than The Last Jedi ever did when it first came out a couple years ago. Or at least, no, a full year ago at this point. Man, whew, it's going to be a couple years when episode 9 comes out, because, oh man, so many questions left about how much money that movie's going to make. The point here that I'm trying to make is this. Last Jedi made $1.3 billion by the end of its run. The Last Jedi had a very, very, very bad audience rating. Very poor word of mouth, because it pissed off a lot of fans, because guess what? It totally destroyed Star Wars canon and a lot of Star Wars story arcs as well, to the point where it almost ruined previous Star Wars films by the very fact of adding things like hyperspace ramming, which doesn't make any sense, and also makes you wonder every single time you watch the original Star Wars, why didn't they just put a robot inside, or droid, sorry, didn't want to be offensive. Why don't they just put a droid inside an X-Wing and have it go light speed through the Death Star? Great question. Great question. Thank you, Ryan Johnson, for having us ask that now every single time we see a Star Wars movie or show. With all that being said, though, that movie still went on to make $1.3 billion. Aquaman, at this point, as I said, is already over $600 million. This film has already outpaced by over $200 million the entire gross of Solo: A Star Wars Story. So this film is not only well on its way, it's already making a profit, a huge profit. It is also over half the way to $1 billion, and it happened very quickly as well. And the question then needs to be asked, well, how did this happen? What were the factors that led to this? Early release in China, I think, was a very good idea on their part, because it made the market focused on them. And also, I guarantee you, it made a lot of Chinese audiences feel special, like this was really an event film. The fact, oh man, we get it before everyone else does. So it's going to be that kind of movie. I mean, 2 weeks before anyone else got it, it's going to be that movie that everyone therefore is going to want to see, because it's going to build up that kind of excitement. Add on top of that, the great response from fans and audiences alike. I may not have liked it all that much. Again, I gave it a C+, which again is still a pretty solid score, means it's above average. Even with that being the case, though, I cannot deny that a lot of people are coming out of this film loving it and having so much damn fun, to the point where, guess what? When you have fun in a movie, because remember we used to have fun when we went to movies, you want to see it again. You want to experience it again. You want to bring your friends. You want to bring your family, and you want to say, hey, come see this really cool experience of a movie. We finally have a good DC movie. And I know there's some DC fanboys who are trying to say, oh, you're just a Marvel shill, blah, 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 blah. You can keep saying that all you want. I've been fair to both Marvel and DC. I'm just to keep myself in reality. You can live in La La Land all you want, and you can continue to attack me in the comments. I love to hear that feedback. It gives me strength. It gives me power, and I always appreciate it. With all that being said, though, this film is doing well. I can't deny that. Even the biggest Aquaman hater cannot deny it. And even the people who are saying, oh, it'll never reach $1 billion. Because when I released that video a couple weeks ago saying and predicting, spoiler alert, that Aquaman's going to make $1 billion, and that's just when we had the opening returns from China in, I got mocked. I got mocked by so many people. And I don't think that most of these high-end professional people would have said it either. They would have said, oh, there's a chance, but I wouldn't predict it. But I did. I'm not trying to pat myself on the back. I'm just trying to state a fact that I called that it would happen. Now you're going to start to see more channels. You're already seeing more channels talking about this. But now you're going to start to see more high-end professional people also talk about the pathway to $1 billion, because now at this point, it is nothing but a waiting game. Because at this point, we're getting into the second weekend. At this point, that means that we're going to get close to 60% of the entire box office take. Because again, that is on average what most movies make in their first 2 weeks. Now, it's obviously a little bit different since it opened in China about 3 or 4 weeks ago. With all that being said, though, what we see here is a perfect storm. That if this is 60%, that leaves another 40%, which, guess what, breaks you over the $1 billion mark. And my fingers are crossed. If it's outpacing, at least domestically, The Last Jedi, it very well could outpace The Last Jedi, which would be a huge story, not just for DC, but also for Disney Star Wars as well. But anyway, guys, what are y'all's thoughts on this? Do you think that Aquaman, do you believe me now? Do you believe in the theory that it's going to break $1 billion at the box office? I honestly think it will. Now, keep in mind, whenever I say it's going to make $1 billion, you know what I mean. If you've been following my channel for a while, you know that I mean in total, the grand total of domestic and foreign totals is going to be over $1 billion. That's not what the studio takes in. The studio will only get about 60% of that. However, with all that being the case, even taking 60% of what they already have is already turning a profit. And if it's going to make over $1 billion, it's going to make even more in a profit, you know, compared to everything else. So this film is doing very well. So I would love to hear your thoughts. If you don't think it's going to make $1 billion, what's going to make? Do you honestly think that the next 4 or 5 weeks of this film is going to be out worldwide, that it's only going to make another $200 million? I just don't really see the math there to back that up. It's going to make more than that. And again, when you look to history, because I don't just make predictions and guesses based on anything, I base everything that I possibly can, and I do the very best that I can. Am I perfect? No. I'm going to make mistakes every now and then. I'm sure I'm going to make a prediction about something in the future that's going to be wrong. That I'm going to make a mistake about. But at the end of the day, this film is $500 million overseas, almost is well on the way to over $200 million here in the United States by the time this weekend's over. And when you take all those numbers into account, what you see is a movie that by the end of this weekend is going to be in the $700 million range. By the end of next weekend, probably in the $800 million range, if not more. And a film that is well on its way to eventually breaking the $1 billion mark. I still hold that prediction, and I would love to hear if your thoughts have updated, especially if you denied my thoughts in the last video. But anyway, guys, if you like this video, smash that like button, give me a thumbs up, give me a subscribe. You are all amazing and beautiful people, even the trolls. Have a great day, and as always, God bless.